Hello everyone, welcome to ProAV for our Blackmagic stream. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm joined again by Craig. How are you, Craig?
Really good, Carl. Good to see you.
Thanks for taking the time to come in. I really always appreciate it when you guys come in for things like this. It means a lot, so thank you.
No, we love these. Yeah. So thank you for having us.
No, it's great. I think these are a really great opportunity for customers to be able to ask some of those questions. That it's just a bit of a trade show kind of vibe. And talking of trade shows, how was IBC?
Very busy.
Yeah.
Really good this year. I think we spoke before that there was a very positive vibe to the show. Hopefully getting back to bigger numbers post-pandemic and year by year.
Getting its buzz back.
Yeah, but really positive. Lots of really nice conversations. Lots of productions seem to be coming back to the fore. Good. Good technologies to talk about. Opportunity to present new workflows. So yeah, it was really enjoyed it this year. It's nice. Yeah.
Good. So primarily today, we're going to be talking about what you announced at IBC, right?
Yeah, a bit of a catch-up for everybody. So the guys in my team as product specialists have been doing a series of videos with you to probably pick on individual products or workflows in between. Last time we spoke was just after NAB, which was a huge show.
How many products did you say it was? It was
56 new products, I think, line by line.
Slightly less than that at IBC this year, right?
Yeah, one key product that we'll talk about, and then I think really give everybody an update of where we are after NAB earlier in the year. We tend to find that IBC is a great show where products come and arrive that have been announced at NAB, or we start to make a lot more sense getting feedback from customers about the workflow or operational applicational uses. So good show, not as busy from a press release and a product release at IBC this year, but we can do a catch up and a rundown of where we are across things.
Sure. But I guess primarily it's an update on those NAB things, isn't it? And the biggest update, which people are already asking about in the chat, is the Pyxis shipping date. And it is now officially shipping out. They are on their way to us, and they will be on the way to customers very, very soon. But it's not all the mounts, right? So where are we at?
So yeah, jump straight to it. Pyxis shipping out now. We announced it was shipping at IBC after doing lots of tests and hardware development work post NAB. First product out will be the L mount. So that'll be the unit that you'll be getting first. Some work to follow then, and we'll have the PL mount out as soon as possible. And then the EF mount will follow as the third. Principally, the decision there is we want to get the product out in the world rather than building all of the 3 units or options and doing them as one release.
Sure.
Just a little bit of work to do on the PL, I understand. And then with the EF, with it being more of a digital connection, the engineering teams just want to get some things right on that. They should follow in quick succession, but the key thing for us is L mount version shipping. So they'll be in your hands soon. Yeah.
Literally very soon. I'm looking forward to that. I'm itching to get my hands on a final shoot, because the last time I touched one was months ago when you couldn't even turn the camera on. So I'm really excited to get out there and start playing with it.
Yeah, likewise, I think the very first units we showed them at NAB didn't have the dual ISO system working. They couldn't record, so they were
that was
prototypes. Prototypes of the product, fully working. We showed them at IBC across all the 3 mounts. Really happy that where the product is. It's going to be a great release.
Excellent. They're asking, can you talk about the difficulties you've been having in developing it? Yeah, I mean, there has been a little bit of a delay since you sort of initially announced it. Is there any official word on what happened there, or was it just things took longer than expected?
No, we weren't happy with where the product was coming out of NAB. We showed a very, I'll say early prototype, but the builds we had at NAB, like I say, they didn't do the dual ISO function, but they were a product that showed what we were doing with Pyxis as a new camera platform. Going back, and our engineers based out of Australia knew there was a lot of work to do around Pyxis. My understanding is through the summer months where we put them in the hands of beta testers, we've tested them in environments, we've tested them in labs. They just weren't happy with the image quality that's coming out. Not what we wanted, so unfortunately slightly delayed, but we weren't, and we never will be in a position where we want to release a product that we don't think fits the mark that we wanted to. So some work was done, some internal changes and some updates in terms of the what we wanted to do with the product. Hits all the right spots, now it's ready to go.
Good to hear. And the first bit of feedback that is very obvious that you listen to, I think, is the first thing we're going to talk about, right? Which is that monitor.
Yeah, so we can jump in straight onto what we announced at IBC. This is an interesting one, and it was cool to talk about this product and introduce it at IBC, where we came off the back of NAB having announced Pyxis as a new camera platform for us. It's a new product. You know, we spoke about how it was a box-shaped cube-style camera that everybody was asking us to do and maybe mature the pocket camera lineup. We built what we believe to be the best solution for the most riggable, you know, versatile and adaptable product that we have in the market. And one of the questions was, what about off-board monitoring? We have video assist products, but they're slightly heavier. They need batteries. They can be a bit weighty on a small product. So out of the back of NAB, the engineering and the industrial design teams threw themselves straight into building that solution. And we have the Blackmagic Pyxis Monitor.
I'm so happy to see this. I think this is exactly the accessory that camera needed to really separate itself from what you were already doing with the larger cameras and the pocket cameras, and really cement itself as a really practical modular tool.
Yeah, it completes the package.
It really does.
So we, again, going back to what we spoke about NAB, and we probably spoke about on this stream last time we were together, was we have that side monitor on the Pyxis.
Sure.
Which is an advantage, and it's there for the menu systems and to set up the camera. And also it's a reference and a confidence view for your framing and your focus, but it's not a practical monitor you can use if the camera's down in front of you or if it's rigged or it's handheld. You're going to be, struggling. So we knew we wanted to look at a solution. It does complete it. You know, every Pyxis owner is going to want this monitor.
I would strongly recommend that every single person that's pre-ordered a Pyxis from us looks at adding one of these to it, because it really will transform that camera.
Yeah, and we're hoping our resellers bundle them together. Would be, you know, just add that in the basket
we will.
as you go. Yeah, but as a technology as well and as a unit, it's complete in the way that we wanted this product to work. So it's nice and lightweight. It weighs a little over 200 grams. So when you do mount it on the camera, it's going to feel usable. Whereas other off-board monitors like our video assists, the batteries can be heavy, could change the balance of the camera, etc. It's a single connection. So we use USB-C connector. It's using the same technology that we have with the URSA EVF. And you can use the URSA EVF on the Pyxis. You can also use the Pyxis monitor on the URSA Cine. So there's a connection between the two technologies and the two camera platforms. That USB-C cable, we could lock it as well. So it's nice and tight, no risk of knocking it or pulling it when you're using the product. That's powering the monitor. It's just sending the display port for actually building the display and the video output. And there's a data connection. So Pyxis Monitor is touchscreen. It acts as an off-board menu control system as well for the camera. So anything you can do on that side monitor in terms of settings and going into the menu, you can do on the Pyxis Monitor itself.
Which is fantastic, and a big difference between built by the manufacturer solutions like this and, say, third-party monitors that we're now just starting to see the cusp of a wide variety of third-party manufacturers being able to do camera control. But because they're designed for every camera, we're always quite sort of limited. Like Atomos have just released the Shinobi 2, which can do, you know, iris, white balance, ISO, and that's kind of it on the majority of cameras. I think it can now do quite basic touch to focus. You know, it's really quite limited functionality in terms of what you can do touching the actual camera. And that's not the case for this at all. It is essentially just part of the camera, just with a cable going.
It's an extension of the camera system. So absolutely, everything you can do in the touchscreen on the side of the camera, you can do on the Pyxis monitor. So if you're familiar with our other products that have got this, the URSA Cines and the Media Pro products or the pocket cameras, you can tap icons to pull down your exposure or your recording. You can tap the media. You can record. You can check your VU levels. We had some feedback at IBC straight away about different UIs that people would want to see on there, so we can start to build even better performance and use on it.
What were people asking for?
On the bottom left-hand side, for example, we have a histogram. If we could tap that and make that full screen.
Great.
So just nice little exposure tools. So it's there. But a couple of comments I had from operators was, that'd be great if I could just check it, bring it up larger so I got the detail of it, tap it and send it away. Stood right next to our product managers like, we'll take a look at that. Or
maybe make it an assignable button where you can choose the function of it. You could use it to toggle any of your exposure tools, like you could have a full screen waveform, or you could have a false colour.
Exactly.
I'd use that all the time for false colour.
And that's brilliant. And another hardware feature of this product is there's 3 assignable buttons on the rear.
Yes, cool.
So we do have the function, if you go into the menus, you'll be able to choose the Pyxis monitor as an external device, and then you can assign the F1 to 3 buttons, and they can just be quick for, maybe you want your false colour, your peaking, or any other function there as well.
Absolutely.
To be on. And there's little indicators to show which ones of those are being used. But all in all, just it's a nice, simple solution. It's an elegant solution for Pyxis. It's massively practical as well at 1500 nit, so it's nice and bright. You get a little sunshade with it as well, so if you are working outdoors in bright light, probably not this time of the year in the UK, it will be really visible. And then in terms of practicality as well, I love the fact that the sunshade folds down.
Yes.
So you can leave it on the monitor and it acts as a screen protector in transit as well. So some nice little touches the way
Which is the same one that goes on the side of the URSA Cine, is it? Or is it slightly different?
Slightly different.
Similar.
It looks similar, yeah. Practically the same, but slightly different in that it just packages down neatly and locks, and closes it out.
Right, and there's a couple of questions on usability on it. I've also much more general question, which I'm going to ask, but I'll just hold those for a minute till we finish talking about the monitor. Forgive me if this is common knowledge, but can you turn off the side screen while operating? Is one that's come on the Pyxis.
Not currently. That was one of the feature requests and something we spoke about with the PM, product manager. And again, noted. So if you do, the conversation I had with one particular customer was the intention to use Pyxis on cranes or on a short jib. So he didn't want the power draw of the side monitor, and it wouldn't be necessary. And he throws a little bit of light out as well. So we're going to look and maybe see if we can add that as a function when the monitor's on. It would either auto detect the monitor and turn off the side screen, or as an operator you can choose to do that. And then just as another key point for that customer was the USB connection could be up to 5 meters. So you could have Pyxis on the end of a small jib and then have the monitor at the operator end. And of course, you've got complete control.
Full camera control.
Yeah, and you've got your monitor for frame and focus. So
fantastic.
We'll look at that as an option for sure.
Absolutely. But I think how I'm sort of envisaging using the camera is to just keep that as the full screen, touchscreen control, like the menu control. And it's basically just a big glorified menu panel. Yeah,
quickly dive in and out of what you need to use. The option's there. If you prefer it for just a monitor for frame and focus, it's that. It's touchscreen record. You can investigate your media, dive into all the menus, whatever you prefer to do.
Hood Affairs TV is asking, can we use this monitor with non-Blackmagic cameras now or anytime soon?
No, is the short answer. The longer answer is and similar to the EVF that we have with URSA Cine, is they're effectively just receiving DisplayPort data to give that data connection from the camera. We've had this question, it's a very frequent one at IBC, it's been a frequent one through the summer about the EVF. And the answer is that if there's other camera systems out there that have USB-C and those manufacturers would choose to put DisplayPort data out, that could, in theory, work. We'd have to test it. It would be something we'd invite other manufacturers to look at, for sure. But in theory, it could work. We would just obviously need that data connection from third-party cameras, and then just probably a bit of a check from us to say that it is where it needs to be.
I think the one that brands will be picturing is either mirrorless cameras, which I think a lot of those won't have the DisplayPort active on them. Most of those USB-C are for data and power. The one that I think people are thinking of the most is Canon with the C400, because they have said that is using DisplayPort. So that could be a really nice one. But if Canon will talk to you.
We're open to it. It's as we are with a lot of our technologies, if there's third-party manufacturers that are interested because their customers see the benefit of using our technology, then that's a conversation we're willing to have, for sure. It's not proprietary. I guess that's the key thing. It's not a proprietary connector. It's not a proprietary cable. So it does have that adaptability built in.
But out the box, you can't expect to pull it out and plug it into any camera's USB-C port and get a picture.
No. So it'll work with the Pyxis as it's designed for. We'll be showing it at IBC in prototype working with URSA Cine, and we will be taking a look at the Micro Studio camera as well to see that the USB-C on that connector on that camera, whether that's going to be suitable for this monitor. So when we know for sure, we'll be able to give you a little bit more advice about that third camera. But that would be it for just about now.
Cool. Okay, let's move on to the mounts, because this is quite an interesting part of it.
Yeah, so we've designed Pyxis Monitor with 3 options for you to purchase. So first of all, it's just the monitor. So if you've got your own rigging system, there's 1/4-inch mounts to the side and the base of the monitor. You can pretty much put it on any existing setup that you have. So you can just buy the monitor. That'll come with a cable and a sun hood.
So it does come with a cable, because that was something that we had run into before.
I believe so. Again, once the product's shipping, because this is expected later in Q4, we'll know for sure. My understanding is it will come with a cable because you'll need that cable.
I think that would be really nice. And I can see a lot of people choosing that if they're going for, say, third-party cages around the camera. Often those have their own mounting solutions inside. And so I could see them designing and changing those cages, which they've already brought to market. Yeah. I can imagine there's going to be some revisions coming to include the monitor.
So you can just take the monitor, add it to whatever you need. We have a monitor kit, so you can see there's more detailed photographs on our website, but you get a plate that will sit to the front or the rear of Pyxis with a dovetail slide built in.
Yep.
The dovetail mount will then pitch and pivot and rotate, so you've got full 360 degree control over where the monitor's facing. Monitor sits on top. It's a really nice lever release system that we've built. Again, the same as we've seen.
Same one as this, right?
Yeah,
it is really nice and sturdy.
Nicely engineered, quick dovetail system, quick to lock and move. So you can get that if you want that on the camera itself. So that might be a handheld solution, or if you've got it in a handheld rig. So you know the any sort of handheld gimbal system, something like that. The third option then takes the EVF kit that we previously announced for URSA Cine and adapts that to Pyxis. So you get the same mounting system, but as you can see, if you've got it set up here, you get a EVF mount which allows you to pull and twist and rotate and move the monitor as if it's an enlarged EVF. You'll get two cables with this option. So you get a shorter cable should the Pyxis monitor be to the front, so it's nice and neat. We'll supply a longer cable as well, so if your particular setup brings the monitor back towards you as the operator and the camera's further away, we'll just bring that across as well and you get this longer cable.
Cool. So but not 5 meters like you mentioned before.
It won't be a 5 meter cable, no. But we'll test it with certain cables, and if we know which one's out there, we'll be okay.
That'd be good.
But yeah, you have three options principally available. So choose what you want in terms of a mounting solution, and take the monitor for either Pyxis, or it will work with the URSA, as you said. So
very cool. Let's jump into a few questions then. I'll just go through all the questions, I think, shall I? Bird is asking, will the side-facing LCD on the Pyxis come with a strong glass panel to protect it? I'm concerned about not being able to flip and hide that LCD and it taking a hit while in the bag. It's an interesting one.
I had that question previously. I think in the current manufacturing design, I don't think the materials that we use would change. However, it is quite impact resistant and scratch resistant. It's not going to take a direct smack directly into it as a screen. I think possibly there's third-party solutions you could put in there. In terms of packing it in a bag, it wouldn't be something that we would offer, but you could put soft protectors in, or choose what bag would put that in there. Sometimes there's no way of fully protecting those if and on a shoot or something as well, it's going to be fairly vulnerable because of the design that's there. I think you'd look at ways you could protect the product. I don't think there's going to be a change that we're going to make right now for that monitor.
Cool. Fantastic. He's also asking, EF was a big part of the URSA system before. Will there now be an RF mount in the future for either camera?
Not entirely sure about that. RF obviously being a standard that Canon built for themselves and develop and keep hold of. I think the kind of opposite of what I just said about we have a non-proprietary USB system for the monitoring. If Canon, if there's a conversation to be had there and there's enough lens choices and we want to go down that route, there's a conversation we can have with Canon around it. It's early in the life cycle of these products just yet. Pyxis just starting to ship, URSA Cine just starting to ship, and we've got a wide range of lens options available. I think it'd be natural in the development of the product to see how RF grows as a lens choice. It's not something we've used just yet. If we could adapt RF into the body as well, I don't know what the flange distance is on RF. It's not a system I'm massively familiar with.
It's quite small.
It's quite shallow.
It's very similar to L. I think it's 1 millimeter here or there compared to L.
If it worked in terms of where we sit on sensor plane to lens mount, that's would be something obviously naturally would have to be part of the engineering design. There's conversations to be had, but right now it's not in the lineup of lens mounts that we offer on the cameras.
Fair enough. Marlon is asking, can you talk about if there is if they have added any more into the software, like Apple ProRes or other things that were not announced before? Any changes?
No, not in principle. Apple ProRes is something we don't offer on the cameras because we have Blackmagic RAW. And Blackmagic RAW being our own developed technologies, works differently as a codec. What we do with Blackmagic RAW, and there's a conversation we'll have shortly as well about some other announcement with it, is we profile it to the sensor. So Blackmagic RAW's core use to us is it understands the principal differences of the sensor, its colorimetry, the nature of how we're reading the line data off that sensor, and then it packages that up in a very specific way. And we do partial demosaic in the camera using the camera hardware. The workflow for Blackmagic RAW is very specific, and we're very happy then that what that allows us to do, and we're probably the only manufacturer, I think, in the industry that does this, is we have from sensor to post-production a single visual pipeline and a single video pipeline in that processing. So we concentrate our development around Blackmagic RAW in essence. There's no other software changes, so the behavior of Blackmagic RAW, the codec options that are in there, whether it's constant bitrate or constant quality, are the same. The only things really we'll look at is, again, we'll talk about the 12K and the 17K, is some of the different options we have on sensor and some of the scaling that we do in it, but they're principally the same software right now.
There's a few questions about the Pyxis compared to the Cinema Camera 6K. Sven is asking, is the rolling shutter optimized for the Pyxis compared to the Cinema 6K? And Metal Monkey is asking, will the Cinema Camera 6K get the same shooting resolutions as the Pyxis? Kind of weird not to give it full frame 16:9 6K. Does it not have that? I thought they were the same.
I think they were the same. I'd have to check to be sure because there's so many different options and variables between them to put the specs side by side. So I can't specifically answer that.
I tell you what, Metal Monkey, if you leave a comment when the live stream stops and it becomes a normal YouTube video, if you leave a comment down below, as soon as I get R1, I've got the Cinema Camera 6K here somewhere down there.
We'll check it.
I'll check it for you.
Yeah, I mean, we can be accurate rather than guessing on it. And the first question was in relation to
rolling shutter.
Rolling shutter. In principle, it's the same sensor.
Yep.
So Cinema Camera 6K sensor taken across into Pyxis. So the rolling shutter speeds, the performance is going to be the same. The rolling shutter speed is slower than most systems when you're at full 6K open gate, and that's just the nature of the height and the width of that sensor. Yep. It becomes more practically usable if you're shooting in a 4K mode, for example, like 4K DCI or 16:9 mode, where we actually then really just take in what we need in terms of the readout of that sensor.
Yeah, I mean, from what I remember on the numbers, yes, the open gate was a bit high, but 16:9 just in the normal high resolution one, so just not open gate, was comparable to cameras that are being used widely in the market, like the Sony FX9, for example, cameras like that. So yes, could be a bit faster, but you know, it's not, is still.
And we have other
within the normal
technologies
realms.
where, so the URSA Cine has a much faster readout speed.
Yes, we're going to talk about that in a second. It's amazingly fast.
Yes, but that's a different sensor technology. It's a more expensive camera platform.
Yep.
So, you know, Pyxis and the Cinema Camera 6K sensor is in a very strong price point, very competitive in terms of what other manufacturers offer in terms of image quality, performance, etc.
Yep.
There may be other camera systems out there that can do a readout that's quicker, but there might be other things that Pyxis offers. So it's a bit of a trade-off and a balance, really. I personally, shooting with the Cinema 6K, didn't find the skew to be difficult. You know, if you're going to have fast in-frame motion, naturally it might show some skew. If you're going to pan and move the camera around or have in-frame, you've got to make the choice for yourself what kind of content you shoot.
It's not the sensor's strength, but I don't think, certainly in the normal 16:9 and certainly in the crop modes, it's going to be an issue for the average job, I think is the way I would put it. Yeah. Like you said, open gate is a slightly different, and I think that's the number that people fixate on because it's the highest number in there.
And then likewise, I think with open gate, you're shooting for a particular reason. So we tend to find people that were asking for open gate in a large format or a full format system are shooting cinematic content. So it's controlled, it might be drama based, etc. So skew and in-frame motion isn't particularly going to be something that becomes apparent.
Okay, there's two big questions that I want to get onto. One about, in terms of product lineups, Andy TV is saying, will there be any changes or new products for the Pocket range, or is the Pocket range now finished? And Metal Monkey is saying, are there any plans on the video assists, and is that lineup still going to carry on going? So I guess bundle those together.
They're still both strong products for us. Pyxis is, if you want, a cousin product of the Pocket cinema cameras.
Not a replacement.
But not a replacement, yeah. And naturally you can see the connection between the cinema camera to Pyxis. You can see how we've evolved in that full frame systems. But the Pocket camera is still a really popular product for us. It's still one of our best-selling camera units.
I imagine it is.
Naturally, when we have the past couple of years where we've concentrated on building 2 new camera platforms with URSA Cine and Pyxis, that takes a lot of our engineering time away from the existing products. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see some future development around Pocket. And likewise, video assist, different engineering team, different product team, but there's work that crosses over into the development of actually Hyperdex and the work we've been doing that are very linked to video assist.
And there is a little update on video assists coming very, very shortly. We'll talk about the last question before, and then there are a few questions about that and the Sony RAW stuff, so we might maybe reorder your carefully put together slideshow, I'm afraid. But before I get to that, quite a lot of people are talking about autofocus. Bird is saying the only thing that really prevents us at the moment from moving our cameras fleet to Blackmagic design is autofocus. BMD have an objectively better system in a lot of ways, but AF seems to be an unsolved frontier for them. Is there any progress?
We're looking at it, and we're aware of customers that feel and think that way, and we want to be able to offer a very comprehensive tool set across any of the cameras. We've not done autofocus to date, as it hasn't necessarily been a priority that we wanted to fix in the camera systems. I think certainly if you go back over the past 5 years to the URSA Mini Pro 4.6K camera, and you've seen a lot of evolutional development through the broadcast camera systems. The Pocket family became the Pyxis, then URSA Cine. We've concentrated on a lot of hardware engineering, the Blackmagic RAW pipeline, the development of RGB sensors. So if anything,
your R&D department has been quite busy, hasn't it?
Right. Autofocus is on a list of like to do, and I think we're getting close to having a solution to that, but nothing right now that I could comment on. I would just say I share those comments when we get together and we speak to our development and product teams from Melbourne, and they're aware of it as well. So it's one that we're very conscious of, would like to have it as a comprehensive element within inside of our tools. Can't say much more than that.
No, of course you can't. That's great to hear. Great to hear. Right, shall we jump forward a few slides? We'll get back to talking about the 17K in a second, but because it's quite a nice, quick, easy one to cover. We're getting a lot of people asking about the Sony RAW bit that I teased in the title of this stream. So let's clear that up for people, because I've got to admit, I missed this in the IBC news. This, when you mentioned it in an email to me, should we talk about this? I was like, yes, we should talk about that. I completely missed this. This is big news.
It is. We were showing it as a technology development, if you will. So there wasn't a big announcement of it. This is something that will come later in the year. So the software update isn't available just yet. But we thought with IBC being what it is, as a big trade show, lots of people around the booth, and certainly obviously the value of talking about how we can support people that own Sony products was going to be quite useful. So we had a small technical demo where we had a video assist product attached to a Sony FX6 and introducing people to the work we're doing. So that is providing Blackmagic RAW recording for the FX6 and the FX9 cameras, and then unlocking that technology for that camera platform. We've had Blackmagic RAW support for third-party technologies and cameras for a while, so we support, Nikon. We did work with Panasonic originally, and there's a list of supported cameras actually if you go to the video assist pages. But naturally, Sony and who they are as a brand, it's something that we did want to work on, and work's been going on in the background for a while. About getting this right. And in essence, it introduces Blackmagic RAW to Sony camera owners.
Absolutely, but this is the FX6 and FX9 rather than the HDMI-based products like their mirrorless ones, which can send RAW out over the HDMI.
Yeah, so in principle, we were showing it working with FX6, so we could take the we actually had their external SDI adapter. I don't know the name of the Sony product.
So the FX9 needs an external SDI adapter, which is the XDCA back.
Yep.
The FX6 can do it just in the
Straight through
camera,
the SDI.
has straight out the SDI, turns that into a RAW port.
So yeah, we were showing it off the SDI, so we take the raw 4K input to the video assist. Again, the way I explained it before, Blackmagic RAW is built to profile to the sensor. So some of the work we have to do is within our hardware encoder that sits inside either the cameras or, in this instance, video assist. So we understand the nature of the Sony sensor, we understand its colorimetry, its readout, etc., and then we bundle that into the Blackmagic RAW package. So anyone that's used Blackmagic RAW knows you get a sidecar of metadata which tells Resolve the camera principal characteristics and some of that lens data information. So we've worked with Sony on that. That means when you plug the video assist in, it will receive the 4K data, it will see the raw output of the cameras, either with or without the module based on which model you need, and it will package it down. My understanding is we're working to support FX6 and FX9 first. We'll then take a look at FX3 so that we can cover the full range of those Pro Cine models. There's no development currently for the Alpha channel and the mirrorless hybrid systems. From Sony's point of view, that's a different division, that's a different engineering team. Maybe and hopefully, if this is popular and we see a lot of uptake with Sony users wanting access to Blackmagic RAW, that's a conversation we could have.
I imagine it will be popular. Blackmagic, it's no secret Sony's had a lot of cameras, and it's also no secret that Resolve is very, very popular. You know, Blackmagic RAW, at the moment, the only way to capture that RAW is via an Atmos product in ProRes RAW, which is very nice, but is fairly limited in terms of what you can put that into. You know, as is Blackmagic RAW, I suppose, in just in different ways with different pieces of software. But I think, given the choice, people would like to have Blackmagic RAW inside Resolve. And so, I think this could be quite popular.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it was a technical demo. We had it working in principle to show how it would connect and how the Sony camera would output that to our device. Expect to see that later this year. In Q4, so this will be a free update as well. So if you own a video assist, or you want to purchase one and you're an FX6, FX9 owner, that update will be free, and that will unlock our support for Sony with Blackmagic RAW as and when. Hopefully, that's the start of a beautiful relationship, and we can do more Sony products in the future.
Absolutely, that would be really nice. Bird is asking, so will it be a case of the video assist doing the demosaicing into Sony RAW? So no, it won't record Sony RAW. It would take the RAW output from the camera and do all the stuff that Blackmagic RAW does to record that as a Blackmagic RAW file, which includes doing part demosaicing, part of it's done in Resolve, part of it's done in
that's it.
the camera capture.
If you're unfamiliar with how the Blackmagic RAW processing works, there's a page on our Cinema Camera websites, and there's a video that Grant did when we announced Blackmagic RAW that explains how it's different. It's not a codec and how a codec behaves in terms of the creation of the file in the camera and the baking in of color, etc. It behaves like a RAW product, but what we do is we leverage some of the performance of the cameras or our hardware's processing to start the demosaic in camera, some of that sensor profiling, some of that color work. When you take the Blackmagic RAW file across to DaVinci Resolve, it completes the demosaiking and color profile work and then displays that as per the camera. The reason we do that is we believe it gets you closer to the actual characteristics of the sensor than any other acquisition codec or technology that's out there. So in the Sony instance, all we need from the third-party camera is the pure raw readout of that sensor, and then we will package it as we know we can with Blackmagic RAW.
We also did, I'm just trying to find the, we did a stream with Simon, who's your senior sales specialist for Resolve. Not that I need to explain that to you, but for people watching. Blackmagic RAW.
Yeah, and he walked you through the workflows.
Yes, exactly.
Told you exactly what's happening at each stage and the performance capability of RAW.
So I've just put that in the chat for people watching. So if you do want more information on how Blackmagic RAW streams, that is a really great place to start, because it was 8 months ago, whereas some of the things that you were mentioning there were done when it was launched. And I think it has grown a lot since then.
It's matured as a technology, yeah.
And Simon's great at explaining things like that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, should we move on to the big cameras?
Yeah, let's jump back. Excuse my slide deck.
So, firstly, shall I explain? This is obviously the 12K that I've got here in front of me rather than the 17K. Well, I say obviously, you wouldn't be able to tell. It is the 12K rather than the 17K that I've got here next to me, which is our ProAV one, which we've been starting to work with, starting to make content on, there's a lot here to get your head round as a camera. This is a full-on camera. This is not like anything we've seen from Blackmagic before. And so there's a lot to dissect here, but we are in process. We've been filming some stuff. Some of the footage you can see behind me on the computer if I move that way. Some of this stuff isn't quite ready to be shared yet, but we are filming bits. There's stuff coming, so I can speak a little bit about that if anyone has any questions on what it's like to use. But they're also not too far away from shipping, as far as I understand it.
Well, shipping now in the sense of product has gone out. You have
as in one is physically here.
You have your demo unit. That is your own. Whereas last time I was here, it was our principal prototype. We've already got the product out in the hands of customers. It's on some really interesting projects and productions already. So what we really get excited by is once the product goes out into the world is what people think of it, to try it. And I totally understand cameras are probably the most subjective technology in our industry. you have an attachment with people get tribal about cameras, so because you know what we like and we know what we want to achieve with them. But we love to see what gets made with the products. So we're excited to see we've got it, as I say, it's got some corporate work, some music, some live production, a couple of features that are testing the camera out as well. And
doesn't surprise me at all because the sensor in this camera is just... It's stunning. It's really, really very good. It builds on what you did with the 12K originally, the URSA Mini Pro 12K, which was very, very intriguing. And as I sort of almost have settled on that camera mentally as a technology demo for this sort of generation. And I think this is the generation where that is really starting to shine because the dynamic range, the resolution, well, it's not downsampling, is it? Because it's a different way that it works.
In-sensor scaling.
In-sensor scaling is incredibly good. It really is.
Yeah, I think you're right. The URSA Mini Pro 12K, which is now a product that's 4 years old, and in terms of our development around the sensor, that's obviously longer as well, was a product, I think, and we all know what it was like when we hit the pandemic and everything stopped. It was the right product at the wrong time. But what that allowed us to do was, from an engineering standpoint, and Grant spoke about this at NAB, when we decided to move to the URSA Cine and make some principal changes to the product in terms of hardware, media, connectivity, and adding a lot more cinematic and digital filmmaking technologies to our URSA platform. At the heart of what we did is we took the 12K RGB sensor and the RGB technologies that we'd built. There's a big conversation to have about RGB versus Bayer. But in principle, what we know it does is it gives us a stronger color uniformity when you use the camera, so your sample of color and your colorimetry is as accurate as we can be. As a camera manufacturer, we come from a post-production background. Blackmagic is principally and has been a post-production company.
Of course. And
one of the longest standing statements we've said about our camera development is we design them kind of from the backwards. We look at what we want to take off the camera into DaVinci Resolve and into post, and we build camera systems that way, whereas other camera companies may look at sensor first and derive what you can get from the sensor and work through the camera. So when we arrive at the sensor of the camera, where we've built connectivity, we built Blackmagic RAW as a packaging system from sensor to DaVinci, the RGB system was another link in that chain to go. We moved from a Bayer-based technology to an RGB sensor technology to improve color reproduction, color uniformity. By having an RGB system, there's also W pixels, which are effectively clear pixels. They give us a boost in luminance, so you have a vibrance in that kind of area as well. We're not creating luminance from chromatic information. We've got two separate channels. When you combine that, this is where we're getting dynamic range at 16 stops that's stated on the camera. I was
just picturing some of the dynamic range shots which I sneakily showed you before the stream, where there's pulling up some of the shadows in an incredibly high dynamic range scene. The shadows looked remarkably good, some of the cleanest I've seen on any camera platform, and I guess that's because of those luminance pixels.
Yeah, and again, the way that we're processing or keeping that imagery from sensor through through camera processing, but not doing any kind of noise reduction or processing in the camera, which can add some muddiness and murkiness in your shadows or can lose image detail in highlights. We're trying to keep that image line as clean as possible. So the RGB sensor unlocks a lot more technology for us in terms of the sampling, Blackmagic RAW in terms of the way that we encapsulate that, and then DaVinci Resolve in the way that we demosaic and break that then back out to usable color. It is a very rich image that you get from the URSA Cine 12K, and it's designed to be exactly that. And then 16 stops is very high dynamic range in terms of where we are with the camera technologies, and very usable in terms of latitude. Anecdotally, from people that have first used the product, you can take the images into DaVinci Resolve. We have tools like highlight recovery. They're getting a stop and a half back as well on top of that, and then making obviously grading decisions based on all of that latitude as well. So we're really happy that as we've developed the camera hardware, we've taken that RGB technology that we principally had in the first 12K camera just to a different level. And also not just because the original camera was Super 35 based, this is now a large format system as well. So it takes it into a larger scale sensor, larger photo sites, better production in resolution as well.
Absolutely. But it has a larger sibling. Oh no, hang on, we're not talking about that yet. We're talking about sensor performance. Cool. Because this is, I think this was one of the biggest surprises for me when you first started talking about this camera. It's because you hear this camera, and you go, okay, fine, it's Blackmagic. It's got a very, very high resolution, large sensor.
Yeah.
It being one of the fastest sensors on the market was not on my guessing card.
No, it wasn't what we thought it would be.
No.
And we spoke about this chart when we last spoke, and it's been published and it's been spoken about more recently, I think, online in communities and forums. And it's a statement of how powerful and the level of performance that this camera really gives us. So, again, if we're going to shoot full resolution open gate 3:2, readout is at 12 milliseconds. That's incredibly fast. That's the nature of the design of the architecture, both in terms of RGB and the rear engineering of how we're pulling that information from the sensor itself.
That is the same as Sony did with the FX6 and the FX3, which was purposefully designed to be a 4K native sensor in order to get the information off as quickly as possible, not do any in-camera downsampling or anything like that. It stuck to just ordinary 4K in order to get it off quickly and managed, I think it was 11 to 12 milliseconds. Like, that is remarkably good. You're doing that with 12K, which is crazy.
Yeah, full width, full height. And then if we spoke before about, a sweet spot for the camera in terms of operator would be, 12K is a large resolution. That's principally going to be used, we've seen for VFX, we've seen natural history using 12K because they can pan and scan inside of a large frame for wildlife. There's going to be reasons you choose 12K so it's there.
But the average person doing average work that this might be suitable for probably isn't going to be needing that 12K, right?
No, I think,
at the moment anyway.
Well, our suggestion would be try 8K.
Yeah.
So the camera will perform at a very high quality and high performance at 8K, and it gives you that oversampling to deliver to 4K. Not dissimilar to conversations we were having 10 years ago about shoot 4K, deliver HD. Now, the file sizes are 8K naturally larger, but they're manageable because of the technology in Blackmagic RAW. But if you were to take 8K 17:9 as the example there, you're getting the right aspect ratio for digital filmmaking and DCI. We can push the sensor to 180 frames a second.
Which is bonkers.
We're getting a readout speed of 5.4 milliseconds. That's full height and full width of the sensor. So we're not cropping. We're not line skipping or doing any work like that. We're using in-sensor scaling. So we're taking the full sensor at 12K, processing it for an 8K resolution readout because of the way that we can do the maths at RGB. So 8K, 4K, 8K, 12K naturally has that symmetry. And that means we can drive the sensor at that performance level. So for me, I think on that table, 8K at that kind of aspect ratio is a good starting point.
You can almost treat that as the default mode of the camera and then push it higher or push it lower depending on where you need it to be. I think most of our customers, that is probably how I'd imagine they'd end up using it. And an 8K camera that can do up to 180 frames a second at 5.4 milliseconds rolling shutter is remarkable. Yeah,
really is for us. So very pleased with where we are with the technology in the camera and the sensor, and it does you know, it is, as we spoke about, it's the most advanced and technically capable product we've ever put on the market for digital filmmakers.
Absolutely. And I think people will get a bit confused by this whole no crop, it's raw, but you're still getting downsampled footage without it being downsampled. It's that intensive scaling. There's a lot of confusion still going on there for people. In my test so far with this, I have done the same shot, a nice big wide shot, filmed in high data rates, 12K, 8K and 4K, and then just in 12K in all the different data rates. And I have found no nasty surprises. They work absolutely brilliantly. You really do not see that much. There is, of course, a detail drop as you go down, but viewing it on a 4K timeline, the 8K and even the 4K looks really very, very detailed. And in the 12K, when you go down between the different scaling ratios of Blackmagic RAW, you don't notice a huge amount either. And so I would certainly encourage customers to not shy away from the 8K and the 4K modes, and not shy away at all from the higher compression ratios, like, 12:1 and those kind of things, because, 4K 12:1 is going to be very reasonable in terms of data rates. And very, very practical.
Well, there's a data rate calculator again on the website in the URSA pages. So if you've got any thoughts as to where do we go in terms of the file sizes, you can get a very precise answer from that table. Maybe just to put it into context, if we were with the URSA Cine camera, you get the new media module that's built in. So we have a high capacity, high performance media system built into the camera. At 8 terabytes at 8K, you're going to get somewhere in the region of 12 to 13 hours of recording in the camera at those data rates. I mean, 8K is a large space to record into. So you get everything in one.
Also need a bit of credit for that as well, because for the price of the camera, you're getting 8 terabytes worth of storage just included with the camera. You certainly don't get that with any of the other manufacturers. Adding 8 gigabytes, 8 gigabytes worth of storage. Terabytes worth of storage. Thank you. I'm mind blank for a second there. Adding that in CF Express cards or SD V90 cards or any of the other ones that are out on the market would cost you a lot.
Yeah, and likewise, we chose to put in a media system of our own, not to create a proprietary media package that we could then sell to people, but the performance of the sensor, the capability of what we can do with this camera is starting to outpace certain third-party media systems. So we wanted to create something that was
12K open gate,
exactly right,
180 frames a second.
We showed it. We announced it at NAB, and we did show it at IBC. There'll be a CF Express version of this. So we take out those M2 cards, and then you just have the 2 standard slots. So if CF Express is your preferred media, or if you've got reasons to choose to use that, we will be selling a module that you can buy that, take the unit out, add the CF Express expansion port, and then you can use your own media as well. So
which I'm very curious to try. Do we know how far away that is yet?
Again, probably closer to the end of the year where we are with that one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to when that's available, because I know you can also swap out the B mount that's on the back for a V mount, but compromise some of what the camera can do. Swap this out for the CF Express, but compromise some of the camera can do. I'm curious to do both of those things and go for like a low budget, easy to low production value URSA Cine sort of setup and see how far that camera can go.
Lots of options. And again, likewise at IBC, Anton Bauer were partnered with us, and we were showing a gold mount option that they're building. So again, you can take off the battery plate it comes with as a B mount, as an industry standard. If you happen to use gold mount as your preferred system, that will be an option as well in the future. So the idea with the cameras there is the adaptability, if you will. You choose certain parts that you want to change or work with.
Now, we've had a question on from Adam saying, how are you dumping the URSA Cine footage? I'm pleased you brought that up, Adam. Thank you. That is, I think, one of the biggest misconceptions and misunderstandings about this camera. Obviously, you got this big thing, taking this out. How do I plug it into a card reader? And you do make a card reader, which is that massive multi-dock, which is a rack-mounted unit thing with 2 slots on it and costs quite a bit of money. And that's going to be great for the right productions, but the average owner-operator is not going to be buying that with this. So, I mean, do you want to speak a little bit about that decision from Blackmagic before I talk about the Sonnet?
Yeah, absolutely. If the scenario was that you're a larger budget production and you've got multiple cameras and the need to take media modules backwards and forwards in an older fashioned data wrangling thing, we do the dock system, and you can put dock those media modules into it. You could have that on a DIT trolley, for example, or whoever's handling the data wrangling on set. That's a very high-end solution. We have got a particular production we're working with that has done that, where they've got cameras on a large soundstage and they want to have that workflow. However, we don't know that that's really going to be the main way that people will work with media from the camera. We were speaking about this again with your experience, that we have a 10 gig E connection on the camera itself. You can plug that into your workstation, whether direct or via an adapter, and you can then directly interrogate the media on the camera.
Yes.
So the workflow that will probably be the fastest, and probably our method of doing it would be to just plug the camera in on set, or between maybe shots, and as you're doing different setups, or as you finish at the end of the day, transfer your media directly off camera to your workstation and back it up. That way you probably never need to take the media module out of the camera. And
that, I think, is the mentality shift that people are going to have to get their heads around with this, is that big media module, just don't take it out of the camera. This product, by the way, is the Sonnet Solo 10G, which you can almost think of as your card reader for this camera. So rather than taking the card out and putting it into it, you connect a cable between the camera and this. It's just an Ethernet cable. And what tripped me up at first is that you do have to turn on in the configuration of the camera remote network access, because that's not turned on by default, but you just plug this camera in over USB-C, enable that on the camera, and then forget about it. You don't have to turn that on each time. You literally plug that into your MacBook and run a 6 gig Ethernet cable into the camera and pull the footage off that way. I did a shoot with it which was 260 gigabytes worth of footage, and it transferred across onto my M1 MacBook Pro, so not an up-to-date MacBook Pro, just an M1 one, with this in just under 4 minutes.
No time at all.
Which is remarkable. That's up there with the fastest card readers out on the market, really. And
you've got an instant backup. You can then obviously triplicate that, so you've got a backup of your backup and you've got a working file, however it is. I think the nature of the system, the way we've designed it, is that's probably going to be a principal way of doing it. If you're working with multiple camera, multiple media, you've got the docking option. We've been asked, that supports 3 media modules, and it is an expensive unit. We've been asked if there'll be a single dock option, so that supports USB-C, so we're taking a look at what the hardware we can do as well. Try to get feedback from operators as to what would be their most practical way of using it, but certainly I think straight out, having the 10 gig connection on the camera is massively powerful in terms of it. Obviously it's got Wi-Fi, you can see the antennas on there. That's a slightly different workflow, whereby we've got proxy performance built into the camera, so you could be sending proxies linked by Blackmagic Cloud and syncing to resolve projects as you're working. Then you could plug in your 10 gig and then reconform and connect the high-res files as you bring them off at the end of the day.
That's exactly how I did it on this shoot. And the camera was just in the room next door, and I just ran a long cable from my edit station to it. I didn't even take the camera off the tripod. It was just plug that in,
and away you go.
So copy it across, made myself a cup of tea to do the next shots afterwards, drinking, and before I was back with a cup of tea, done.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really makes a difference. Mark's saying clever little setup with taking footage straight off the camera with a fast Ethernet. I think that's the big thing for customers to get their head around with this camera.
Yeah, I think it as well, it answers the concern that if people will look at this and go, well, I don't want 12K. We go, that's why we have probably our best performing 4K camera system, and we have an incredibly advanced 8K system. Still demands large files.
That's a really nice way of putting it. This is the best 4K camera that Blackmagic have ever made.
But by far, and a step in the future. But naturally people, I come from a post-production background as an editor, and when we started working with HD files for the first time, you looked at the difference, and then 4K files, there's a concern as to go, wow, that's a lot of media, and how am I going to manage and move that around? So being able to take it from the camera as quickly as possible is the first step in that production chain.
So Bird has also come back saying, my only wonder about the URSA system right now is that most deliverables going out are at most 4K timelines, so beyond 8K starts to become additional, albeit impressive features rather than needed. And that is exactly what we're saying here. There will be some situations where 12K is useful. If 12K is not useful for you, to be honest, just forget that it exists in the camera. This is still a native 4K or native 8K camera using its full sensor width, that will go up to 180 frames a second, and with rolling shutter as low as 5 milliseconds. Yeah. Find me the camera that does that other than this. There isn't one.
Yeah, we had this conversation multiple times when the first 12K unit came out, which was almost ignore the 12K. Because it can distract. It can make you think, well, I don't need files of that size. I don't need resolution of that scale. It's niche. It might, as I said, it might be something that's applicable to certain productions, live productions, sports, natural history. It's very useful for VFX and plate work. But if you are working solely in 4K DCI, that's your acquisition resolution, that's going to be your delivery resolution. This camera will work at those formats without compromise as to what the sensor does. If you're interested in working in 8K to get that oversampling and maybe even future readiness, there might be projects that you're thinking about future 8K use. Again, going back to when we thought about SD to HD, HD to 4K, shooting the newest higher format, delivering the current, and then you've got a backup. Absolutely. You've always got the choice. Again, the camera will not compromise in terms of crop, in terms of image reproduction being reduced by going down from 12K to 8K4. It is seamless in the way to use it as well. You literally go in, you choose 8K as your format or 4K. Blackmagic RAW performs the same. The sensor performs with that scaling. And to your point, and I'm looking forward to seeing the content, you'll see slight shifts in the resolution, but that should be about all.
Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, and even that is minimal, to be honest, in my test. I've had to crop into 500 on a 4K timeline anyway to sort of 500, 600% before I can really see a sharpness difference. The 8K and 4K look fantastic. They really, really do. Right, let's talk about the newer kid on the block.
The bigger camera. So again, announced at NAB. We showed the URSA 12K on the booth. We didn't have this camera physically, but we spoke about a roadmap and where we were going with the URSA Cine as a new camera platform. And that was to introduce a 17K 65mm equivalent system. We had this camera at IBC. It was the first time it was shown worldwide. So we had demos on the booth to show customers it's real, to see the image performance, the clarity and the resolution. This camera, it sounds bizarre for me to say it. We looked at the 12K on the booth, and then we look at the 17K, and there is a visible difference. Again, it's another step up in terms of image performance. We announced the price for the camera as well, so it's around $30,000. So UK, that will be £23,500 for camera only. Yep. As with the 12K, it will be purchasable with an EVF option. That takes it up to $24,500. So we're doing what we always have intended, which is to keep affordable pricing and accessibility to all filmmakers, but bring in the bleeding edge of technologies into that.
Because, you know, this is very much, and I guess the 12K is still in this realm, but the 70K certainly is, where lots of people at home will be hearing that thinking, that's a colossal amount of money. And of course it is. The cameras already on the market that are capable of doing what we're talking about here cost
6 figures.
10 times that. Or just aren't available to purchase.
Or a rental only. We really are pushing out in terms of where we're going as a digital cinema filmmaking business and a technology company. Our intent, and we built slowly. We've only been making cameras for 12 years, and we learned some valuable and some hard lessons in the first 6 years of that. And then now we know where we want to go as a technology company. The URSA Cine 17K is intended for two things principally. We're working towards being a camera manufacturer that is used at the highest level. So we have to work and develop technologies that match the cameras out there that shoot at an IMAX equivalent readout or a 65mm system. But likewise, we know that there are filmmakers and creatives that would love to have their hands on that kind of technology, but can't afford it or couldn't have the production budgets to rent. So we want to do two things.
You know, talking about productions that want to shoot an IMAX film but can't quite afford to shoot an IMAX film, we're not talking about small indie filmmakers there. You're talking about multi-million-pound productions that can't afford to shoot IMAX. IMAX is very, very expensive.
I mean, if you're the Christopher Nolans of this world and you're shooting celluloid 70mm and IMAX, that's a fantastic technology still if you can use it, but it's very expensive. I've worked on feature productions where the Alexa 65 has been the principal camera. That's an astounding technology, brilliant camera system, but again, expensive productions. I've also worked with younger creatives making their first feature films that have ended up on platforms like Netflix and sci-fi genre films, where if they could have accessed medium format equivalent lenses, they could have used better lenses and created something as cinematic that looks like 65mm within their price point, they would jump at the chance. We're getting to that point where, as a technologies company, we can bring those options to those creatives and do the same thing. We
just had a really interesting comment. Tony Tech put 99% of the people here will never use, nor do they need, the URSA Cine 17K. I just retracted it as I was talking about it. Still, if you're a techie like me, you're enjoying this live stream. Not sure why you retracted that. I think it was a very good comment. Just to put that into perspective, yes, on one hand you're right, but on the other hand, this costs... What was the UK price you said there? 23.
It'd be £23,000.
No, as a student, I remember hiring cameras. I think it was a red, one of the reds, one of the early sort of Monstro ones or something like that cost 40 grand to buy at the time, and I hired that as a film student. And as did other students around me, and so if we were able to shoot our final year student film on a camera that cost £40,000, why can't... So I don't agree that 99% of people here will never use that. They might well.
I think so. We see the drive for technology and change and for the access. It's not about chasing pixels and this is 17K now and other people did 8K.
Sure. You don't need to shoot your student film in 17K.
No, it can't be about that. But what it does, and we can look at the sensor and we can look at what the actual performance of the camera is it unlocks a different level of filmmaking, which is principally to now been either very expensive or older celluloid based, which is prohibitively expensive in terms of stock and process. I think there's three areas. You talk about education. There's going to be an opportunity for leading film schools to take this technology into their courses so they can talk about what it would mean to work at these higher cinematic formats, shooting principally in an aspect ratio that's close to old-fashioned CinemaScope. And what that means in terms of the heritage of story and filmmaking. There's going to be owner-operators where this camera comes in at a very affordable price point that may want the large scale of what 17K and 65mm offers. Again, could be going into live event, it could be cinematic production. The camera will shoot as well 12K, it will shoot 8K and 4K. So likewise, as we just said with the URSA Cine, you could just use it in 4K. You might not spend the money on this 17K camera to only use 4K, but it's an option. And of course, there's rental. We work closely with rental companies. We know this is a product that they then probably revitalise some of the rental services that are offered and productions out there. And it might be a try before you buy. It might be a camera you bring in for a reason. Or it might be, as you just said, you want to try that technology, but you wouldn't purchase that technology just yet. So we'll design the technology, we'll build the camera, we'll put what we can as we believe to be the most innovative development into our camera systems. How they get to market will help develop and we'll build. We do think there's a need for the camera. We know that there's people who want to take this step to this technology, and the performance of this camera, again, just goes a level beyond what we're doing with the 12K LF system.
So let's talk about the other aspects of the sensor other than its size or its resolution. I mean, obviously this one has very fast readout speeds. This one has very high dynamic range that we were talking about. Presumably that's all still very much... Is it going to be slightly different, or is it going to be the same?
It's the same. So as you can see here, we take the 12K sensor and we stretch it out.
So it is literally the same piece of silicon?
Yeah, so same height, it's 23.5mm tall. It's just wider, so it's 50mm in width rather than 35mm, which is the large format sensor in the 12K. So it takes that width out. We get somewhere in the region of 140 megapixel. It's still designed around an RGB system, so we're using that technology. And to be confirmed, because maybe it could be more, but we're looking at it being 16 stops dynamic range across that entire sensor. But what we also know as well, and this was something we started to look at come in the lead up to IBC, and there was some articles worked on. Film and Digital Times did a piece which is online if people want to take a look, which was a deep dive into some of the lenses that can cover 17K.
In fact, Tony has come back as a response to his 99% people won't use it thing, saying, I'm not talking about the camera body. A larger sensor requires larger everything. It's not practical for most people, not right now. And lenses is the main one of that.
Of course it is.
And yes, of course, the majority of lenses to cover this are going to be those very expensive lenses.
Yeah, signature primes and large format, medium format.
There will be a
systems.
few that cover it, or very near enough cover it. Like the Takina Vista's actually in front of me here that I've got here on the 12K. These cover way beyond the full frame and large format sensors like this use. Whether it will capture absolutely everything and the full sensor width of the 2.2K there, 2.2 to 1 even there, maybe not. I'm not quite sure, but it should cover the 17:9, I'd imagine.
Yeah. So what you're seeing here is this is actually the menu recreated of what you'd see if you go into the camera in 17K mode. So 2.2 to 1 is the full height and width. So it's 17K wide, it's 8K tall in terms of resolution. We were showing, and we've tested Lights Talia and some of the Blackhawk lenses that do give us full coverage. And the question is absolutely right. The rear pupil of lenses and the projection to the sensor may not be tall or wide enough, principally wide enough for the actual performance of the lens. So you might go to 2 to 1,
Sure.
which is still
okay. It doesn't seem like that big a compromise to
16K.
me.
If you want to stay within, let's say, the realm of DCI and aspect ratios that you might be more familiar with, you can go to 17:9, which would be taken to 15K, because we're just going to crop those edges off, so you don't get any rear projection or any kind of distortion to the edge.
And that's still a much larger sensor size than the 17:9 in here. In the full frame.
Yes, yeah, where the 17:9 is, I think, about 6K in height. We're getting 8K height by 15 wide. So what we're doing is we were lucky at IBC, I guess, that people had lenses and product there. So we had conversations with lots of lens manufacturers and lots of people coming along at the end of the day going, can we just try this one? And then photographing the output to see what was in the corners or how sharp it was through the middle. And a lot of interest from lens manufacturers that would offer large enough medium format style lenses or cinescopes width lenses as to know where it will sit. So we're going to work to put together a list of lenses that we know either are full coverage or are suitable at 2.4 to 1 or 2 to 1 in terms of vertical height or horizontal crop. And then you've got 17:9 and 16:9 if you want to shoot into a DCI deliverable format as well. So we're looking at that. And the answer for lenses, again, is likewise to go, I think there's some, I say affordable in air quotes, they're still very expensive. The Takina lenses you've got here is a fantastic choice. It's more affordable than some of the other medium format lenses out there, but it's still thousands of pounds. But likewise, it'll be a rental option if needed.
And Liam from Team 2 Films is in the comments saying the easiest route is 645 or 67 lenses from systems like Pentax or Mamiya, and you can fit an LPL adapter, and the lenses don't rely on bellows focusing. You can pick those lenses up for, not too dissimilar to how you can pick up normal L-mount lenses or any of the other systems, modern lenses.
And there's a lot of people out there rehousing lenses. So taking older medium format system camera lenses that maybe don't have a life in photographic anymore and rehousing them.
And we've seen a little bit of that on the sort of camera forums, if you like, of people. There's been a resurgence in those lenses with people using speed boosters onto full frame sensors. But I think this camera existing is going to drive that even more sort of prevalent in the industry, and really spark that conversation about what little niche nugget lenses can we find out there that are going to be
I think it's a
affordable
natural
to use
area
for this.
to question, because when we look at other camera systems, we're all very familiar with Super 35 and what that means. When we go to a full format system and we go to 35mm, we're still sitting within side of a lens world that we know. When you start moving to large format and then medium format or larger, it's a little less known as a ground for less experienced filmmakers, shall we say. If you've not worked in these formats with either larger digital systems or older celluloid systems, it might be unknown. If you shot medium format film, you very quickly adapt and understand what we're trying to do here. Through the release of the product and through the development, as I say, what we'll do is give the right advice. We'll try to put together at least a list of understanding of what lenses have coverage. Naturally, then locally and probably regionally work with rental companies and lens companies to give that advice. So once the camera comes to market, there'll be a lot better clarity on how you can shoot and what you can match lens to sensor with.
Perfect. It's all like very exciting stuff.
It is. And then there was the fourth camera that was in our list.
Because the 12K and the 17K weren't enough.
Yeah, which is even slightly further out there in terms of development, and this is URSA Immersive. So this wasn't announced at NAB. This was a background project that's been running for a while, and something we're working on in development with Apple. It was announced in the summer by Apple when they started to give more information about where they were going with the Apple Vision Pro system and the immersive video technologies that they're developing for consumers and creative content makers. We've worked as a hardware engineer partner with Apple for this product, and it's an ongoing work. So this will be a technology we'll have more information on later in the year as we go into 2025. And there's some really, really cool things happening around this. Firstly, it's a funny looking camera.
The Fly.
The Fly, Johnny 5, if you're old enough to remember that.
Yes.
It will be a camera system that in effect will shoot 8K by 8K for both eyes. So you get this broad vision of field of view.
So is there one sensor inside, two sensors inside? What's going on there?
To be determined by engineering, and we'll have it, but it's looking like what we'll actually do is we'll have two 12K sensors for coverage of what those lenses offer. So then we've got an 8K readout per eye. That gives us a 180 field of view horizontally and vertically to then take into Virtual Pro. We'll shoot that at up to 90 frames a second in the camera through all Blackmagic RAW formats, and then deliver that for Virtual Pro through DaVinci Resolve. So there'll be some workflow technologies in DaVinci Resolve that allow you to manage dual sensor technology or dual eye technology, slightly different to 3D stereo in what we're doing here. That's a slightly different workflow, but some principles are the same. And then we'll create a pipeline using DaVinci Resolve. That's a workflow that's currently in development with Apple, but something we were helping lead and build on with them.
Absolutely. And so, I mean, primarily this is making content for the VR headsets like the Apple Vision Pro, which is why you're working on it with Apple, but presumably for other things like Oculus and all the rest of it. Well, the Meta one, even not Oculus, that was the old one, wasn't it? As we start to see that sort of industry emerge, there's going to be a need for high content, and there's a few custom cameras that have been developed for it, like the ones that are developing the content that's being shown on like the Sphere in Vegas, those kinds of worlds, but I mean, nothing that is quite as easy to work with as this. Yeah,
and if you remember, Canon do, I think, a binocular lens system that does something similar.
Yes, well, they've got the sort of the low budget version of this. So they've got for their R5 a fantastic RF lens that goes on the front, which talks to the camera and splits it into two fisheye, so dual fisheye lens. They've then got even cheaper ones of that work with their smaller cameras, and those are amazing. But you're going onto one 8K sensor with these two, and so that is not going to be the same as if you're putting multiple sensors in there with high resolutions on each eye. This is going to be a different world, really, compared to those.
So again, we were showing it as a roadmap. So we go Cine 17K to immersive. We had one at IBC. We were showing that it exists, it's real. It wasn't a functioning unit, and there's only a few of those that we're working on at the moment. But the idea is really this creates a completely new dynamic in filmmaking as well, is part of the conversation in this, and this will be the bit that's really cool, is we know as filmmakers and through the media that we watch and we create, that you're building a frame of reference, and you're drawing the viewer to what you want, either in the frame or by moving that frame. That's how we've made stories and told stories for 100 years or more of cinema. This changes that by placing you as the subject in the scene.
It's one of the biggest changes to that format since the advent of cinema, really, arguably.
Questions I was asked was like, well, how is it different to 3D? Well, 3D is tricking your brain of looking at a flat 2D plane and interpreting 3D motion or parallax within that space, this is different. This puts you in frame. It puts you with the ability to choose where you look.
Yeah.
So there's two different ways of thinking about that. Firstly, as a consumer and a participant in that is, the example I was given was horror films. You could, as a creative, if you wanted to make a horror film, your audience, your viewer now chooses whether they look over their shoulder at where that noise came. Because this will also work with binaural and ambisonic audio. Of course,
because we can do that in audio brilliantly.
So we can place sounds, we can draw attention around the frame, and the viewer will move to where you want them. You could, as a filmmaker, do you change the way that lights move to draw people's attention? It all behaves very differently. There's challenges as well. So as a filmmaker, well, where do you put things like your lights? How do you do... You can't have a boom mic overhead of particular actors in this frame. How do you interact with the subject? Do you create like a first-person story where you are a character in the story being taken by other people? There's some challenges where, what about motion? We're wearing a headset, so there are some rules as well that are going to need to be learned. You can't have fast frame motion because you'll make the user nauseous.
No James Bond action sequences here.
Exactly, and it's very controlled. There's actually going to be probably some restrictions in the workflow. So DaVinci Resolve will analyze frames, and if there's too much motion or any element that would make the user nauseous or passes over a particular parameter, it will mark the clip to say that it needs to be checked or maybe it can't be used.
Little warning.
So we're developing these things, as we say, it's very much a work in progress, but what will be interesting is understanding how the technology can be taken forward and used by filmmakers.
I think that's what's exciting to me about this, is that you're working with Apple on it, who make the best VR headset out there really with the Vision Pro, and so they should work, I'm hoping, pretty well together, and formats be matching, and you make the software as well, so you can do all of those, it's going to be so different in terms of a post-production workflow. You're not going to have to rely on other third-party systems making a good option for it. You're in control of that pipeline. And then
optimized. So again, we speak about this being a manufacturer that has everything from sensor, in this case lens on the camera, because it will be an integrated system, through to file format and delivery. What we will be doing with Apple is they will dictate the format, the file delivery that needs to go into Vision Pro, so that will just be an exportable option.
Adrian is saying it's starting to sound like how you would set up a VR scene in Unreal Engine, and that is exactly what we're talking about here. It's a bit like what people are already doing with VR games, but taking that into the real world and doing it with VR video now rather than games. And
likewise, you've seen VR technologies where there might be multiple VR cameras or 180 or 360 systems at sports events, music events. This gives that option as well in terms of an encapsulated performance. This camera won't currently have a live output because there needs to be some processing on what the left eye data and right eye data is doing, so it is a post-production workflow currently through Resolve. But you can engage audiences in events, in activities. It could be recreational, so museums.
Someone's just interactivity. Burgess put it's a real change in medium, being closer to theatre than traditional cinema. It's not a bad thing; it's a new thing. Exactly that point. Museums would love this.
And having that, it could be an educational tool as well. This is very much where Apple understand where they want to put their technologies. As a hardware and as a partner to that, we bring our filmmaking skills and our tools to that. So Apple are building an audience of technologies and a consumer and a user base. Naturally, that needs to be fed by production, and we talk to the industry that builds content. This is a new tool set and a new dynamic for content and content creators for an entirely new user experience.
George is asking, do you think VR is the way entertainment is going? And that's an interesting one, I guess, to unpick. I think my opinion on that would be that it's not the way that it's going. It's a new thing coming onto the market to complement what is already out there. I struggle to see the future where we don't watch films anymore. We only do VR things, but I can certainly see where they're just as popular as one another.
I'm old school film. So I go to cinema and I want to watch, I love IMAX, so I'd watch it in that. This is that kind of like wrapping IMAX around you.
So the nearest comparison I can go is, okay, we've invented moving picture cameras now. So now our pictures can move. So you're never going to be interested in a still photo again. You're only going to want... That's not
I think it's about choice, and we see this in the media industry. How you consume and how you engage with content, and what content creators can put their storytelling into. Or it could, like we said, it could be educational, recreation, it could be museums or live events, etc. It's just building a new extension of technology.
New way to tell your story.
Yeah, and I think the question about VR is the extension. VR gaming has been around for a number of years and is hugely popular and is growing in development around gaming, but it doesn't mean people aren't still playing normal games.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a choice.
Exactly that. Fantastic. I'm just going to skip through and see if there's any other small questions. Andy Teeley is putting repeatedly the same thing about the pocket range. We did discuss that already. You said there is absolutely no intention to stop the pocket range. That's still very much an area of interest for Blackmagic. Alamox is saying, I see you have what looks like a couple of Blazar Remus anamorphic lenses on the table. Have you tested those with your Cine 12K? How was it? Any sample footage available anywhere? I guess you mean the ones over there by you, Craig. Those aren't actually the Remuses. Those are the DZO Film Pavo lenses, which I haven't. They're nice. Super 35 rather than full frame like the Blazars. An interesting talking point with that, though, on the 12K, while we're on the subject, is that this does have a Super 35mm crop mode, even though you don't have to. Obviously, you can go down to 8K and 4K with the full sensor width. There's a 9K sensor crop mode in there, which I have done a bit of filming with and is beautiful. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's the only sensor mode that will crop, and it's designed to match to Super 35 formats, whether 4-perth, 3-perth or 2. And in the menus, you'll see how they match based on what your lens choice is to it. But yeah, it's principally designed. You could be using URSA Cine 12K alongside other Super 35 systems, so you want to match field of view, or you could be shooting Super 35 film stock. And this is a digital partner to that. So we built the 9K mode as a way in which we could encapsulate and support 4K.
That makes perfect sense. George has put, hi both, hope you're well. Question for Carl, what do you like most about the Pyxis and how does the monitor UI compare to other monitors out there? Can't really answer what do you like most about the Pyxis because I haven't properly used one yet. I do really like the design. I think the shape of it is a camera that I'm personally much more comfortable using than the design that's on the Pockets. And I think with the new Pyxis monitor, that's going to make that even better. I also actually really like the sensor. The rolling shutter always comes into the discussion about that sensor, and yes, it's not like this, but the dynamic range, and it's a full frame sensor from you guys, whereas all those other pocket cameras have been Super 35. The combination of it being full frame and the dynamic range on it, and your color science is a really nice way to get pictures for a very, very good price point, because the Pyxis is not the same price as a lot of other cameras on the market. It's very, very well priced.
I think you'll see the Cinema Camera 6K has been available now for 12 months. And you'll find online lots of people that have worked and shot with that. So
and a lot of positivity around it.
Yeah, and it produces some beautiful images. Whether that's cropped down or worked in 4K mode, or certainly we see people in that open gate mode. And because it's the same sensor in the Pyxis, it's just a different engineered hardware body. I think we know the standard and the quality of what you'll get from that camera. We just repackaged that cinema camera system to something which is more pleasing for some people. The cinema camera body and the pocket camera body, they're more intimate. You're closer to the camera, you're using an EVF, and if that's how you like to shoot, that's where that camera system's still relevant. If you prefer to have a run and gun style or a gimbal or a handheld system and the camera's away from you, that's Pyxis. So we give that choice, but the sensor between the Cinema Camera 6K and the Pyxis are sisters, so we know what the image standard is like out there already.
Absolutely. And the second half of George's question there about how the monitor UI compares to other monitors out there, the answer to that is that it's not the monitor UI, it's the camera UI, right? I mean, it's literally exactly the same as if you've ever picked up a pocket camera or you've ever picked up something like this or an URSA Mini. And crucially, on the Pyxis, it's exactly the same as if you were using that little side screen on the side.
Exactly that.
I'd argue there isn't a monitor UI, it's just the camera's UI, which is, I would say, one of the best designed quick access UIs on the market. It's brilliant.
Absolutely. And it brings us to the camera app, actually, as a notable point, and probably like one of the last elements we spoke about in terms of camera news for us this year. We call it Blackmagic OS. That's the operating system and the UI platform that's in all of our camera systems. So if you've used Pocket, URSA, broadcast cameras, Pyxis or the Cine, they have the same UI, they have the same control systems, have the same menus. It's an intuitive tool system. So when you choose, you'll see, if you use any of our cameras, when you choose your resolution, it'll then tell you the aspect ratios available, it'll tell you the recording modes available. So it's built to be logical. It's also built to be quick. I think we've all probably used camera systems where you're going with a dial down through lists of menus to find something and then having to push it, but you press the wrong button. So it's quick and it's intuitive. The Blackmagic camera app, just as kind of an extension of that, was something that we designed and delivered last year. And we took that Blackmagic OS and that camera software into iPhone. It was principally designed to do two things: to introduce Blackmagic technology for digital filmmakers that were using iPhone, but also to unlock the power of iPhone with Apple again as a hardware developer and as a software tool, where they are seeing iPhones being used more for digital filmmakers and creative content.
Well, we've just seen that the new 28 Days Later, which is not called that anymore, it's
28 years later.
Later, is all shot on iPhones.
Indeed, yeah, absolutely. So, and that's going to be a progression. And again, it might not be the camera of your choice, but it's a camera you can use in multiple ways. So we want to design tools that could do that. And I say we built it with an idea in mind, which was to bring our software technology from camera into Apple's hardware to unlock the performance of those iPhones. And it could be an entry point for younger filmmakers. It's actually gone way beyond that. You're seeing it used on feature films with the iPhone technology. You're seeing it, and I've had multiple conversations with mobile journalists that are using the technology in iPhones with our app, so they can capture news quality content in the phone. As an update, we brought it to Android earlier this year. We've just done another update which improves and brings it closer to the iOS release. So now all of the functions for anamorphic modes, high frame rates, off-speed recording, etc., and cloud syncing are both in the Android and the iOS version. And one of the other things that we've introduced as well this year, and this was something shown at IBC, it's only kind of side note maybe to the more hardware-driven technologies, was introducing remote monitoring. So we've got multi-view of multiple cameras and remote control. So we're also seeing the camera app being adopted into live production, where you could have affordable, smaller camera systems, or even just the cameras you own in your phones, used for multicam monitoring throughout.
The Analox has just put a very cheeky little comment saying that iPhone is now the only Blackmagic camera with autofocus, which made me laugh a little.
That's a fair comment, yeah. We'll claim that one.
A few other questions have come in.
Does that mean I can say that Blackmagic does have autofocus?
Focus.
Yeah.
Ooh, yes, sure, let's go for it. Analox is also saying, does any upcoming features or releases, are there any being shot on the URSA Cine 12K to be on the lookout for? I imagine you can't say.
I can't say.
Yes.
But I am aware.
Okay.
Yes.
Intriguing.
Yeah.
And then a few people are asking about on the Pyxis, can you use the new monitor and the EVF at the same time?
Not on Pyxis, no. So there's two USB ports on Pyxis, one at the front marked viewfinder and one at the rear USB-C.
Yeah.
The rear one is designed for data connection, so that's plugging in external hard drives and having that as a media option. We won't be putting, and it doesn't have DisplayPort to that.
Yeah.
As we said, URSA Cine can. So there's a USB connector on the front, on the panel, which also has the Lima and Fisher connectors for the viewfinder. And then we have two USB ports on the top, and we can put the Pyxis Monitor onto the URSA Cine using one of those top. There'll be an update for the camera when the Pyxis Monitor ships to support this. It's not in the release build that you're seeing on the first cameras. Whether you want to, because we joked about this at IBC, we had it set up, but we had effectively a pull-out side monitor, the production assistant monitor on the side, an EVF, and a Pyxis monitor on one camera. And it's like, I don't think you can get that many people around the camera comfortably, but the options are there if you want to. And also there's a 12 gig SDI.
I think where I see that being more useful is obviously this is fixed and in place and is actually nicest to use when it's closed, because you get an easy access to this bit of the panel there. So if I turn that around, this whole operator panel here is where all your function buttons are. It's where your exposure controllers and stuff like that. And when this is flipped out, you lose access easily to that. So having a monitor up here instead of having that one flipped out, I think could be how people end up using
the
that.
camera as well.
All that.
Those functions could be managed. Yeah, absolutely. So it would be an option in that camera as well.
Kingsbane is asking, apologies if anyone asked this already, but will the Pyxis monitor be compatible with the Cinema Camera 6K? So the Cinema Camera 6K, and I guess the other pocket cameras as well.
I think the answer is no. Again, once the camera starts shipping and we know for sure in terms of what the engineering capability is, but I think the answer is no, because those cameras don't support DisplayPort output on USB-C. That's a technology we added after those cameras were released. That
makes sense. And then a couple of product requests, I guess you would call them. Paul is saying, any plans for a PTZ camera?
Similar to the autofocus question, in that it's something we know, it's something we speak about internally. We've developed another number of different tools in live production around the A10 products, and we brought back the micro studio camera last year, which was a product we kind of discontinued but realized that people wanted. So PTZ as an option kind of went down the kind of list of priorities. It is something we would like to take a look at, but I don't have a definitive answer for it right now.
I'd love to see one. That would be really great. And similarly, Bird is saying for a Blackmagic mini monitor 4K with just the video feed, because we don't really have a simple 4K in-out box as well. So a completely different category of product to these ones, but nice little feature product request. Apart from that, just a few bits of positivity around these new cameras. Adrian saying, I was lucky to pick up a Cinema Camera 6K during your sale. It's the best money I've spent. Absolutely love the image from it. So easy to grade. Lots of positivity going around. I think there's a lot of excitement about this sort of... It feels a bit like a new chapter for Blackmagic. There's so many new... you've got a new modular camera design with the Pyxis. You've got a new high-end camera system. It really feels like one of the biggest changes in your lineup in a long time.
I think it very much is. You have these moments, I feel like, where we kind of accelerate our development. There's like these, you get plateaus, I guess, where things are being developed around products we have, and then all of a sudden we hit something new. And certainly 2024 has been that. The whole conversation we've had has principally been around cameras. There's so much more going on in post-production and live production and technologies. But these are a statement of where we are as a digital filmmaking company and where we want to go. So the 12K is without doubt the most advanced camera system we've ever built or put on the market.
Absolutely.
We spoke about it in April as being a camera where what can we build? What do we need to put into our camera systems that will move us forward from the existing technologies? Pyxis was a recognition of people want to use our camera systems, but the demand was for a box and a cube style system, because ergonomically that's what people wanted, to match their demand of how they use systems and cameras to mount it. So we built what we believe to be the most riggable camera we've ever created. 17K, as we've spoken about, goes the step higher in terms of very high-end digital systems coming down to affordable price. And then immersive is a whole new world. So I think it's a very exciting time. And now as the cameras start to come out, we've gone through that announcement release schedule, and we're now seeing the cameras coming out into the world. Really looking forward to seeing what comes out and what gets shot on them. So,
but before then, I'm looking forward to finishing playing with this, playing with the Pyxis, playing with the 17K, playing with the immersive.
We'll keep you busy.
Oh, wow. I think that is a great place to wrap that up. We're a little bit over, so apologies. But thank you so much for taking the time to run off that.
Thank you for letting me talk so much. It's always good to.
Any time. Thank you all for watching, of course. And if I have missed any of it, there was a lot of questions coming in there. So if I've missed any of them, apologies. This stream will be available to watch after the fact as a regular YouTube video on the channel. So leave a comment down below if we have missed any questions or you've got anything you want us to check for you, and we will get back to you. But thank you very much for watching, and if you want to order any of this, or of course anything else Blackmagic make, then get in touch with us at ProAV. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you soon.